Good morning. It is week 11 already. And we are at John chapter 15. Now, a lot of people will call this section, John 13 through 17, the farewell discourse. And I kind of feel like that's just a little misleading because although he is constantly telling them that he's going away, he never actually says goodbye. And this is one of those places where the humanity and the deity of Jesus stands out the clearest, because he's saying he's going away. He's preparing them for the events leading up to the crucifixion. But he's saying also how they are to continue with him even when he's not physically with them, which is totally not a human thing to say. I mean, when you are not going to be in physical proximity to someone, usually you say goodbye. But what he says are things like, abide in me. I'm going away, but abide in me. I can see how this could be very confusing. But like I said, he's preparing his disciples, not necessarily to do without him. Absolutely not. He's preparing them for the traumatic events they're about to witness. And he prepares them by both prophecy and instruction. He tells them exactly what's going to happen. Although, when I say exactly, that also might be a little bit misleading, because if he were being very exact, he would say, in about a couple hours, a mob is going to come and arrest me and drag me away for trial, and I'll be crucified. What he does say are things like, yet a little while, and you will see me no longer. And then another little while, and you will see me. So I can see them being confused. It's totally understandable. But we're at chapter 15, and he's in the middle of the instruction part now. And it begins, I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he takes away. And every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes, that it may bear more fruit. So this allegory of a vineyard is actually a pretty common metaphor in Scripture, particularly in Isaiah. If you were to look at Isaiah chapter 5, it opens with, let me sing for my beloved my love song concerning his vineyard. My beloved had a vineyard on a very fertile hill. He dug it and cleared it of stones and planted it with choice vines. He built a watchtower in the midst of it and hewed out a wine vat in it, and he looked for it to yield grapes, but it yielded wild grapes. And now, O inhabitants of Jerusalem and men of Judah, judge between me and my vineyard. What more was there to do for my vineyard that I have not done in it? When I looked for it to yield grapes, why did it yield wild grapes? And now I'll tell you what I'll do to my vineyard. I will remove its hedge, and it shall be devoured. I will break down its wall, and it shall be trampled down. I will make it a waste. It shall not be pruned or hoed, and briars and thorns shall grow up. I will also command the clouds that they rain no rain upon it. For the vineyard of the Lord of hosts is the house of Israel, and the men of Judah are his pleasant planting. And he looked for justice, but behold, bloodshed. For righteousness, but behold, an outcry. When is a vineyard not a vineyard? When it's an allegory. And this is an allegory about a rebellious vineyard where the owner did everything right. Did you hear that? It chose a fertile spot, dug it, cleared out the stones, planted it with good vines. And, the watchtower, the wine vat, all is ready for it to bear good fruit. But when the harvest time came, these nasty, small, sour, wild grapes that you can't do anything with. One might well say, what more could I have done that I did not do to bring a harvest out of this? But there's another spot in Isaiah, chapter 27. Another song about a vineyard, starting in verse 2. In that day, a pleasant vineyard, sing of it. I, the Lord, am its keeper. Every moment I water it, lest anyone punish it. I keep it night and day. I have no wrath. Would that I had thorns and briars to battle. I would march against them. I would burn them up together, or let them lay hold of my protection. Let them make peace with me. Let them make peace with me. So it's like, first you have a song of a rebellious vineyard, and then you have a song of a faithful, what's known as a vine dresser, the one who takes care of the vineyard. And this is a chapter all about the restoration of Israel. Because, as it says, I, the Lord, am its keeper. It is not abandoned. So when you come to John chapter 15, and you hear words like, I am the true vine, what does he say? That Jesus is the true Israel of prophecy. That he's the one who fulfills their obligations. And my Father is the vine dresser. Well, that's nothing new either. But every branch if he is the true vine and his believers are the branches, they are still looking for fruit. Of course, you could refer to Romans 11 for a similar allegory, right? Of the olive tree that had branches grafted on or broken off, depending on faith. And the same is true here. The ones who remain in him, as he's about to say, bear fruit. The others are broken off, taken away, burned. The whole purpose for existing that a branch has is to bear fruit. Hence, the branch that does not bear fruit, the vine dresser takes away, cuts off. And later on, verse 6, it's like, if anyone does not abide in me, he's thrown away like a branch and withers, and the branches are gathered, thrown into the fire and burned. But there's something else going on here. It's not just, well, this is natural for you to do if you're a branch attached to the vine. But if you go on, verse 8, by this my Father is glorified, that you bear much fruit. To put that in a simpler grammatical construction, when you bear fruit, Father is glorified. We can sing all we like. Father, we love you, we worship and adore you, glorify your name in all the earth. But if we're not bearing fruit, it's all just words. But those who do abide, those who do bear fruit, they not only glorify the Father, but there's a promise here. If you go down to verse 16, you did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you that you should go and bear fruit, and that your fruit should abide. Right? So there's a lot of abiding going on here, but when you see that word, it means it lasts. It's not just a matter of, one season, you bear some fruit, and then you go for a couple years, nothing, and then, another batch, 5, 4, 6 years pass, nothing more. No, this is fruit regularly that lasts. And the promise is that whatever you ask the Father in my name, he may give it to you. So that gives you a hint about what makes for effective prayer. Are we bearing fruit? Are we abiding? And of course, for Jesus, abiding means something with two sides, really. And this is nothing new. You'll find this in the other Gospels and other wording. But the key to how to stay connected to someone who's leaving, if we go back to verse 7, if you abide in me and my words abide in you. This is not the first time he has said this. If you go all the way back to chapter 8, he says, if you abide in my word, you are truly my disciples. Here he's saying, if my word abides in you. That's where the connection starts. But it doesn't stop there. Verses 9 and 10. As the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Abide in my love. Now remember, last week we talked about he's already defined what it means to love him. It's to obey his commandments. Love equals obedience. And if you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. There's a model set for us. He, out of love for his Father, obeyed. So we, out of love for Jesus, must also obey. And the outcome of abiding is not just fruit that lasts, but that's a huge thing, right? Because how many times do we sit down and we look at our lives and we're like, how did I get here? I used to have zeal. I used to be able to study and pray with joy, enthusiasm. So don't underestimate the value of fruit that lasts. But there's also something else that comes from abiding. Verse 11, these things I have spoken to you, that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be full. Some versions say complete. This idea of fullness of joy coming out of dwelling in his word and having his word dwell in you, and loving obedience brings joy. And this is going to be really important because of what he's warning them about. You go to chapter 15, verse 18. If the world hates you, know that it has hated me before it hated you. If you are of the world will love you as its own. But because you are not of the world, but I chose you out of the world. Therefore, the world hates you. Remember the word that I said to you, a servant is not greater than his master. If they persecuted me, they will also persecute you. If they kept my word, they will also keep yours. But all of these things they will do to you on account of my name, because they do not know him who sent me. It's an important thing telling them how to remain with him, even though he's not physically with them, and to assure them that love, that faithfulness brings joy, because they're going to need it. They are about to become some of the most despised people among their entire nation. Chapter 16 is like, they'll put you out of synagogues, and indeed the hour is coming when whoever kills you will think he's offering service to God. It reminds me of Saul of Tarsus, who goes about abusing and beating and imprisoning and sentencing to death believers in Jesus, and thinking that he is doing God's work. They're about to face a hatred they have never seen before. They never saw it before because previous to Jesus, they were just part of the world. But now they've been chosen out of the world, and they're about to find out what that means. So how does he prepare them for this? An interesting contrast between this hatred of the world and what Jesus promises. Where he talks about how he had changed how he addressed them. We back up a little bit. He's repeating again his commandment to love one another as he has loved them. Remember back in chapter 13, was it 14? Right around that area. He had said that, but Peter had sort of ignored it in favor of, why can't I go with you, Lord? But here again, you love one another as I have loved you. In fact, he says, greater love has no one than this, that one lay down his life for his friends. And he says, you are my friends if you do what I command you. This is an unusual thing for a master to say to his disciples. No longer do I call you servants, for the servant does not know what his master is doing, but I have called you friends. For all that I have heard from my Father, I've made known to you. This is an unusual amount of relational intimacy. In all of the Old Testament, maybe two people could have been called friends of God. Abraham was, and Moses. But here these men are being called friends by the Son of God. And the contrast between the unity of relationship here and then what they're about to face in the world, because the world hates Jesus and thus hates those he loves, not just his disciples, he says in verse 19, but also his Father. If you look at verse 23 through 24, he says, whoever hates me hates my Father also. If I had not done among them the works that no one else did, they would not be guilty of sin. but now they have seen and hated both me and my Father. This would have been protested vehemently against by the people he's talking about. How could we possibly hate our own God? But if you think about, if he counts obedience as love, what would hatred be? Disobedience. Which gives you an interesting perspective on sin, really, if you think about it. But also, we do not get to choose how we show our love for God. He has already specified, you obey. That's how you love. To the point where they would think that killing people is a service to God. It says they do these things because they have not known the Father nor me. But here's another thing that he's saying as he's preparing them. I have said these things to you that when their hour comes, you may remember. I told them to you. There is no point at which this is out of control. He's telling them ahead of time that these things are going to happen. What does that suggest to you? It suggests to me there's a plan in action here. A plan that cannot be derailed even by opposition. So there's a transition here, again, in chapter 16, where he starts saying, well, you know what? I did not tell you these things earlier. Why? Why didn't you tell us these things earlier? He says, well, simply because I was with you. But now I'm going to him who sent me, and none of you asks me, where are you going? They had asked, and he said, you know the way. And they're like, what is the way? He's like, I'm the way. No one comes to the Father except through me. But there's this interesting twist. He knows, right, that they're sad at this thought that he's going, but he's like, this is to your advantage. How could it possibly be to our advantage that you are leaving us? Remember, he started all of this by saying little children. They are as his dependents, really, in this world now. And he's saying he's going away. But he's already promised, when I go, I won't leave you an orphan. And here comes again a repetition. He says, if I don't go away, the helper will not come to you. But if I do go, I will send him to you. And when he comes, he will convict the world concerning sin and righteousness and judgment. Now, John has dealt earlier in his gospel with this idea of that Jesus did not come to judge the world. If you want to, this is like an outright statement of that. You can look at chapter 12, verse 47. But he rather becomes the catalyst for judgment because of the comparison that springs up between how he lives and how we live. It's kind of like when Paul in Romans 7 is talking about how the law itself is good, but basically it served to show us how far short of the ideal we fall, and hence sin springs up. Well, Jesus, right, shows what it should look like to live for God, and rather than be inspired, the majority of people were infuriated. So he serves as a catalyst, but the Spirit is the one who will convict. You know, in English, convict has two different nuances. You can talk about, you go through a trial and you are convicted of X, Y, and Z charges, but you can also say, inwardly, you are convicted of your own guilt, that you judge yourself to be guilty. And what he's promising here is that when the Spirit of truth, is what he called him earlier, the Holy Spirit, comes, he will convict the world concerning sin and righteousness and judgment. Now, he gives a sort of explanation of this. It's not the clearest, but again, it's all a matter of perspective. Concerning sin, because they do not believe in me. Their chief sin was he came and he did all of these things to prove who he was, and they refused to believe. Concerning righteousness, because I go to the Father and you'll see me no longer. This one has always puzzled me a little bit until it dawned on me that not only did he come and show what life should look like, but he's also vindicated in that no matter how they condemn him, his righteousness shows through by the fact that he does, in his obedience, follow through to his reward. He ascends to the Father. And then concerning judgment, because the ruler of this world is judged. If you look at Revelation, there's a spot in there that talks about how there's a great war and Satan and all his angels are cast down, and they're like, well, rejoice, O heavens, but woe to you, O earth, because he's on your territory now, and he knows his time is short. He has been judged, but he won't be removed right away. And that's going to be a problem. But that's another matter. Verse 12 makes me smile a little bit, because he says, I still have many things to say to you, but you cannot bear them now. I have this mental image of them just looking completely stunned and overwhelmed, watching him, listening, but like right about at their limit of absorption, because he's told them one of them is going to betray him. He's told them that he's going to go away, and he'll send somebody else, and they don't know what he means by that, but he's got a lot more to say, but now is not the time to say it. And he says, but when the Spirit of truth comes, he'll guide you into all the truth. And you have to remember, he's talking to the men who will then be the nucleus of the church, the ones who will teach others what he has taught them. And it's important, it is vital that they be able to remember all that he taught them and understand it. Some of them will go on to write it down for generations to learn and to understand and to follow. So this promise is incredibly important. He will guide you into all the truth, for he will not speak on his own authority, but whatever he hears, he will speak. And he will declare to you the things that are to come. He will glorify me, for he'll take what is mine and declare it to you. All the Father has is mine, therefore I said, he will take what is mine and declare it to you. So it's like the Spirit will come and take whatever is belonging to Jesus, which he received from the Father, Jane, and deliver it to the disciples. It's almost like a tag out. You know, if you ever watch those absolutely absurd professional wrestling matches, sometimes they're team matches, and one is allowed in the ring at the time. You tag out, the other one can come in, you have to go out. Jesus is going out. The Spirit will come in. And the combined testimony of the Spirit and the disciples You see the effect of it in Acts chapter 2. You know that verse 47, they were cut to the heart, and they said to Peter and the others, "Oh, brothers, what should we do?" That is the work of the Holy Spirit working through the testimony of the disciples. And the outcome is more than 3,000 people coming to faith in Jesus. But before then, there's an ordeal to get through. He's got another figure of speech, which kind of makes me smile a little bit, because he's a man talking to men about the pain of childbirth. But, you know, in the day when you don't go to the hospital to give birth, you stay in your home and people are all gathered around and everybody knows what's going on. They can hear, they know there's a lot of pain going on. They also know that it only lasts until the birth. And this temporary pain, however sharp, however intense it may be in the moment, gives way to a lasting joy. It's almost like you don't see a mother, right? The newborn grasps your finger and all you can think of is, oh, that hurts so much giving birth to you. First time they roll over on their own. It's cute, but boy, you caused me so much pain. This is not the normal, natural reaction you have. You are happy that here's this healthy baby growing, and eventually the memory of the pain fades into the background for the joy that the baby brings. And this must have been incredibly true when infant mortality was such high rates, that to have a healthy, surviving baby was a matter of rejoicing, not a matter of fact, just like, well, of course, that's what happens. And he's telling them, right, for a little while, you will weep and lament, you will suffer pain and fear. But I will see you again, and your hearts will rejoice, and no one will take your joy from you. In that day, you will ask nothing of me. Truly, truly, I say to you, whatever you ask of the Father in my name, he will give it to you. Until now, you have asked nothing in my name. Ask, and you will receive, that your joy may be full. So, right, we talked about fullness of joy in fruitfulness, obedience, love. But he's also talking about this guarantee of acceptance. They don't have to ask Jesus to ask the Father for them. He promises, you ask directly in my name. And the Father, who loves me and loves you because you have loved me and have believed in that I came from God, he will answer you. And there is such joy in knowing that you are that accepted by the God of the universe, that you can ask him for anything that accords with the will of his Son. And he will hear you and he will answer you in his own way, of course, in his own time. But you know you are always heard and that there will be an answer. It's promised. And you get to the end of chapter 16 and the disciples are like, aha, now you're speaking plainly and not using figurative speech. Now we know that you know all things, do not need anyone to question you. I thought that was kind of funny because they don't have to ask him the question. He knows what they're wanting to ask him. This is why we believe that you came from God. And Jesus answered them, do you now believe? Behold, the hour is coming. Indeed, it has come when you will be scattered, each to his own home, and will leave me alone. Yet I am not alone, for the Father is with me. I've said these things to you that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation, but take heart. I have overcome the world. Now, the difficulty is going to be hanging on to that statement over the next 24 hours. Because they are going to see him arrested, scourged, mocked, and crucified. And when you see something that horrible, what becomes of the words, "Take heart, I have overcome the world"? They won't understand now, but they will. Next week, we will carry on with the prayer of chapter 17 and the arrest of chapter 18, if you want to read ahead.